Hey guys, in this video we are going to create this form validation with just vanilla JavaScript. So if you are excited to build this project, smash the like button and subscribe to this channel. So without wasting the time, let's get started. As you see, we have a form in our screen. We have done a validation with it. So if I hit a submit without giving the values, as you will see it gives us error, and if I will give it a value less than 2 and submit, you will see username must be at least 3 characters, and if I will give it values greater than 15, you will see username must be less than 15 characters. The other feature is that if I want to do some random email, it will not submit. So if I'll hit submit, it will say email is not valid. So we have also done the validation with password. For example, if I will give it values less than 5 or less than 6, it will say password must be at least 6 characters, and if I will give it values greater than 6 but I will write a different password, then you will see it will say passwords do not match. So these are some of the properties or qualities or features that our form validation project has. So now I will submit it. For example, I will say a name. I will write a test email.com and I will give it a password. So let's give it a password and now confirm the password. Now submit it. Now you will see all of the features are working and the color of the border has been changed into the green color. So these are the features of our project. So without wasting time, let's get started and go to our code editor. I'm using Visual Studio Code. You can use any of the code editor that you want, such as Sublime Text, Atom Bracket, etc. So first of all, I will create a index.html file. Then I will create my style sheet, which will be style.css, and the next one will be app.js. So in my index.html file, first of all, I will create a boilerplate. Then I will change the title to form validator. So in the head I will import my style sheet, which will be style.css, and at the end of body I will import my app.js file. So first of all, we have a container. I will create a container which will contain our form. So in the container we have a form with the id of form. So with the id of form and with the class name of form. So we don't need an action for this because we are not submitting a file to the backend. So we will use id to select this in the JavaScript file, and we will use class to style the file. So in the form we have a div which will say form control. This form control will contain label and input. The label will be for username and we will write it username as a label. So the input field will be, first one will be username. So input type text id will be username. So save it and we will copy this form control with this. So copy this one, and so first of all we also have a small tag for the error. As you will see, if I don't write it, the error you will see in the bottom of this input field, this will be the error in the small. So here we will have a error message let's copy the form control. So I will copy the form control container or div, and the second one will be email, third one will be a password, and the fourth one will be a confirm password. So let's change the username to email and change the small e to capital E. So for second we have an email, so enter a placeholder such as enter email. So for username we will have a placeholder of enter username. Now the third part will be a password, so change the username to password and convert the small p into capital P. Fourth one will be confirm password, so I will select the password. So first of all we will write a password. We'll want a confirm password, so oops, we don't want a capital. Confirm password. So for this we have id of password 2. The first one will be id of password and the second one will be password 2. Input type we will change into password because we want to hide our password as we will write it in the input field. So change into password. Let's save the file, and at the end of this div we have a button. This button will be this one, this submit button. So we have text of submit and we have a type of also submit. Let's save it and open it with the live server. Now you will see this form is not looking great. It's a quite ugly design. So let's go to our style sheet and style this. So first of all I will remove the default margin and padding. I will set the margin to 0. Padding will also be 0 and the box sizing will be a border box. Let's save it. Now we'll target the body, and in the body we will have a font family of this one. I will give it a background as we want a linear gradient, so we will have to use a background image, and in this we want a linear gradient. I will use blue and lime color. So let's save it, and now you will see we have a beautiful color, but we don't want a repeat property. So what we will do, background repeat will be no repeat. Background, oops, we have to write it in a different line. Background position will be a center and background size will be a cover. Let's see how it will look. So it's looking good. We just have to give it a min height because we want it in the whole screen. It will be 100 viewport height. Let's see. Now you will see it has covered the whole screen. So use a flex box to convert it into a center. Display will be flex. Justify content will be center and align items will be center. Now you will see these have come in the center. Just target the container. This container wraps around our form. Give it a background color which will be white. So the background color will be white. We will use a width of 400 pixel. I think 400 pixel will be enough. So what we have to, so go to our index.html and give it a heading. Under the form, under the container we will give it a heading of form validator. So we have a heading. Now we'll go to our style sheet, target the container, background color will be this, give it a padding of, I think, padding of 10 pixel. Let's try. So 10 pixel is looking good right now. We will fix it later on if we have some bug. So what we'll do, we want is username in the same line and our input container in a different line. So let's target the input dot container. So let's see, where is our input. Our input is in the form control, so we'll target a form control, form dash control. So let's target the, first of all, give it a margin bottom of 10 pixel because we want a line space. So we have a line space between, or some space between our input containers. Now in the form control, we'll target the label, set it to display block, color will be, oops, not the column, so the color will be hash 777. This will be gray like color. So as you'll see, our label has become a block element, and we will set the same property for our input field. So the form control input will set the same property, display will be a block. Let's see, and now you'll see it has become the block. We want this input field to cover the whole container, so we will set the width to 100%, and now you see it has covered the whole container. So set the padding to 10 pixel, padding will be 10 pixel and it will look good. Yeah, it's looking good. So go to our index.html file. In the password, we want to give it a placeholder such as enter password, and for confirm password we will give it a, not a class, placeholder of, oops, what's happening, placeholder, it will be a confirm password, and let's save it, and let's see how to look. Now we have a placeholder of confirm password and enter password. So go to our style sheet, give it a margin bottom of 5 pixel to our label, and I think we have to fix some of the issues with the input field. As well, you will see, as I'm clicking, we have a default outline to our input field which is not looking good. So we have to target the input field in a focus state and set the border to 2 pixel solid, the gray color, hash 77. Now you will see it will look good. Now let's refresh it. Now you will see as I'm clicking, so I think it's not working. Let's see why it's not working. We have a form control, border will be 2 pixel. Let's save it. So let's see, let's try red if it's working or not. No, it's not targeting. So form dash control input focus. So why it's not working? Input is this one, form control. So I think so. Let's remove it. We'll fix it later, I think. So let's try again. Dot form control, and let's target the in the form control. We have input with the focus. Set the border to 2 pixel solid, I think 2 pixel solid, and we want a gray color. So now we will now why it's not working, we have to set the outline to none, because we first of all we have to remove the default outline. Now it will work. So as you will see, as I'm clicking, we have a gray color, 2 pixel gray color. Now it's looking good. So to our container, increase the padding to, let's try 20 pixel. How to look? Now you'll see 20 pixel is looking good. So these problems have came in the programming where a little bit of mistake cost you. So stay patient. So we have to style a button, and we also have to style the small tag, which is the error message, and we have to center the form validator. So first of all, center the form validator heading, which will be this one, h2, and we will set it to text align center. Give it a margin bottom of 10 pixel and font size of 25 pixel. I think it will be look good. Now it's looking good. So now we just have to style the button and the small error message. So let's go to our style sheet. So in the style sheet we will, oops, what's happening? So in the style sheet we will target the button. We'll give it a width of 100%, not a dollar, 100%, and set the outline to none. Border will also be a none. Font size will be 16 pixel, and color will be a blue. So black color will be invisible on blue. So the we want a color of white and a background color of blue. Background color will be this blue one. Let's save this. Let's hope it to look. Now it's looking good. We just want to increase the padding. So set the cursor to pointer, and the padding will be 10 pixel. Also give the font size to the input field of 16 pixel. Now you'll see, oops, now you'll see it's looking good. Yeah, it's looking beautiful right now. So let's go to the style sheet and target the small tag. So in the form control we have a small tag. We will set the color to red. So as you will see, we have a red error message. So you will see, if we don't want a default error message, we will set it in the JavaScript. So first of all we will set it to invisible, which will be visibility. I think it will be visibility none or invisible. I think we have a property of oops. Let's save it and let's try the visibility will be hidden, this one. So we don't want default message. So what we'll do, we will want a message when we have a error class on our form control. If a form control have error message, then our small tag will be visible. Visibility will be visible. Let's save it. And when we'll have a error message on our form control, we'll also want to change the color of the input field. So the input will be border will be 2 pixel solid red. And when we have a we will give these class names in the JavaScript file to our index.html file. So then you will see how it works. So follow me right now. So the form control dot success, so input field will be border 2 pixel solid green. Let's save it. You will see no change. So let's give it, for testing purposes, give it a class name of error and give password a class name of success. Now you will see a change. So as you see, it has become green and it's becoming a red, and we are showing an error message. So we'll set it in the JavaScript file, remove it from here. So remove the error. So let's save it. I think we are done with the styling. I hope so. Form validated username. So let's go to our JavaScript file. In the JavaScript file, first of all, I will import all of the values such as username, const username. I will select it with the document.getElement by id. First one will be a username. Now copy this and repeat it 4 more times. 1 2 3 4. So the second one will be, I think so, yeah, it will be an email. The third one, oops, we don't want to select the three of them. So the third one will be a password. Fourth one will be a, oops, fourth one will be a password 2, which is a confirmed password. Third one will be password, and the last one will be, we want to select the form. So we have import all of these values. So first of all, we have a functions, and we will run these functions on an event listener. So we'll set an event listener here. So we want an event listener on the submit. So what we'll do is form, we have a form. So we will add a event listener to form dot add event listener, and we want to run a function when we will submit, when we will hit a submit button. So submit, and then we will run a function. This function will contain an event, and event we want to prevent the default refreshing of the page, so I will use e.prevent default. So first of all, create two functions. First one will be show error and the second one will be show success, that we'll use later on. So let's create a function show error. This function will contain two arguments, input and message. Input will be something like username, email, password, etc., and the message that the error message that we want to show at the bottom of the input field. So input message. So first of all, we want to select the form control from our index.html. This form control will be this one. So what we'll do is, I think so, form control, we can set an ID to it, or we can also have a different technique, which will be we can select it as a parent element. So let's target the form control, such as select it as we have a form input email. We have an input field and input dot parent element. We can use this technique to select this. So when we will have an error, we want to change the class name to error. So set the class name, form control dot class name will be, we have a default class name of form dash control, and we will add a class name of error. And further what we'll do, we want to select a small and change its message. So I will import a small tag by form. We have a form control, and it will be, I think we will add, not add event listener, we will use document dot get element. We'll use a query selector, document dot query selector. So document dot query selector will be a small tag. Use the parentheses, and it will be in the commas, which will be a small. And for small, we want to change the inner text, not inner text, to the message that we will use. So let's save it, and now create a different function which will be a show success. So this function will be a show success function, and it will have some of the same properties, but we don't want to change the border. We want to change the border but don't want to change the small text. We want it to be invisible. So show success, let's use double C double S. So it will have an input as an argument because we don't want a message. So for this we will copy the first two properties and paste it here, and we'll change the message from error to success. Let's save it, and on the add event listener, first of all we want to run a function which will be check required. Check required, basically what this function will do, it will check that we don't have empty field. So when we hit enter, so let's refresh the page. So we have to add these features. So when we'll hit enter without giving the values, it will show us a error, such as, for example, if we remove all of the values, you will see an error message. We want this error message. So for this we have to run a check required function. So for this we have an array with an username, email, password, and password too. So let's create this function above the event listener. So I will create a function which will say check required check, oops, we don't want a capital E. Check required will have an argument of input, and I think so it has an argument of input array, because we have given it an array of 4 numbers. So let's go to, so we will use the for loop. So for this, for each is a clean and an easier to use, so we will use for each instead of for loop. So for loop will contain a function, as we will know. It will contain input, and in this input dot for each we will run a bunch of if statements, such as if input dot value dot trim, you can say if this value will be equal to 0, then we want to show an error message. Otherwise we will want a success message which will change the border color to a green color. So if this, basically we want a trim to remove the white spaces. So if we have an empty value, we want a show error, and in the show error we have an input field, and we want to run a some error message at the bottom of the input field. So we have an input, and then we will use template literals for input, or using some values of JavaScript, such as we will use $, curly braces for input dot id. We are using input dot id to get the password and username, etc. Because this input has the id of password, so this password text we will use. Input dot id is so we want to write a message such as, I think we will write, for a check required it will be something like this input field is required. So what we'll do, we'll write it, whatever the input field, username or password, it will be required. So this will be the show error, and else condition will be a success condition. So we will run the function such as show success, and it will have an argument of input field only. So this will be a check required function. So let's see if it's working or not. So what we have to do is, I think we have to fix some of the things, such as function will be check required. It will have an input array that we are giving it. So we will run a for each loop, and we will have an input if input dot value dot trim is equal to an empty string. Then we want to run a show error, else we want a show success. So I hope it will work. Let's see. We have imported our app.js file. Yeah, so it's not working. Let's see what's happening. Let's refresh the page and go to our code editor. So here we are in our code editor, and let's open it with the live server. And now you will see we have form. As we are clicking, we are not submitting it. So here is the technique, which we can also say debugging technique. We have to inspect this project and go to the console. Here we will find what is the error. So as you see, the error is cannot set property class name of undefined at show error. So we have to go to line 9 in our app.js. So here we will find what is the error. So here we are at line 9. So so here you will see we have spelling mistake. That's why our code is not working. So write the correct spelling. Now save it and let's go to our code. So we are at our project and now clicking. So it's not working properly right now. We have only for username getting an error. So let's see what is the problem. Cannot read property query selector of undefined at line 10. So let's go to our code editor and here you will see line 10. Oops. So as you see, we are targeting farm control. That's why we don't want a document keyword here. So let's remove this. Now save this and let's go to our project. Now you'll see as we are submitting, our check required is working, username is required, email is required, password and password too. So let's go to our code editor and create a new function which will be, so first of all check a valid email validation. For this we will go to our browser and search js email regex. So first of all I will go to the first link, and in the first link in stack overflow we will copy this function. So copy this function and go to our code editor. So in the code editor we will use this function above the event listener. So for this I will remove the return statement and I will use if else statement. So first of all, instead of passing email we will pass an input, because I want to keep it simple, as we have an input in upper part of our functions. So the argument for the email will also be a input. So I will run a if statement. So let's run an if statement here. If re.test, if it will be true, we are passing an email as an argument. So if the input dot value, because we want a value in our input field, and trim to remove the spaces, if it's true, then what we want to do is to show a success message. So this will be success, which will convert the border of our input field into a green. So I will pass the input, and the else statement will be the otherwise, where we will show the error. So for else statement we will run a function show error, which will have two arguments. So underneath else, here we will have a show error with an argument of input, and we will have a error message of email is invalid. Let's save it and go to our event listener and call this function here, which will be validate email, and we will pass email as an argument. So let's go to our project. Here you will see as I am submitting email is required, but if I am giving it some random email, it will not work. So let's click. Oops, it's not working. Let's see what happened. So input is not defined at a validate email, line 28. So let's go to the line 28. So here we will go to the line 28. If re dot, so we have to change the input from email to input. Now it will work. So let's change the email into input. I hope it will work right now. We have changed earlier, so let's see. Now let's give it some random value. So we are getting error, cannot set property class name of undefined at line 15. Line 15, let's go to the line 15. So here we have an error input. So we want to change, we have a same spelling mistake. Let's save it and go to our code edit, not a project, go to a project, not a code editor. So give it some random value and now save it. Now it's saying email is invalid. We have some bugs which are spelling mistakes, so that's why our code is not working. So we have fixed it. Now let's go to our code editor. We have want to do two more functions. First function will check the length of the username and password, and the second function will check the password and confirm password, so they both have same values. So first of all, create a function which will check the length. So let's go to our code editor. Here I will create a check length function. The check length function will create an will contain an input and minimum and maximum value. So under the validate email, I will have a function of check length. So check length will have some of the values. Which first one will be username. So for username, minimum value will be a 3 and maximum will be a 15. We want to run a check length function for our username and password. So the other check length function will be for, we want a parenthesis or brackets. So password, we want to run it for a password, and we'll check it as an minimum will be 6, maximum will be 20. So save it, and above the event listener, create a function. So I will create a function check length. We will get input, which will be username or password, and minimum number and maximum number as an argument. So let's run a function. Here we will have a bunch of if statements which will check the certain conditions. So for example, first condition will be if the input value is less than minimum. So for example, if input dot value is less than min, so what we will do, we want to run an error message which will say show error input, and the other for a message we will use template literals. So for here we will use a dollar sign and a curly braces. So in the curly braces we will write input.id because we want to get the name of the input. So for curly braces we will use input.id. For example, just imagine it is the username. So username must be at least, not at least, min characters, because we have set a minimum length and maximum. So the length for username will be minimum 3 characters. So input, for example, username must be at least 3 characters. So for as else statement, we can say it as an else if. We will run else if statement. So in it we will check for a maximum. So for example, if input dot value is greater than max, what we'll do, we will run a if statement, and here we will show an error which will say input dot not a dot, we want a comma, and then we will use template literals, and in the template literals we have dollar sign. Oops, not a 4, we want a dollar sign, and then we have an input dot id. So for example, it's a password, so password must be less than, for example, here we have a maximum characters that will provide as an argument when we are calling this function. For example, for password the maximum characters are 20, so the password must be less than 20 and then characters. So this is the if and else statement. So the else statement will show a success message, which will be a show success, and will provide an input. So in the show success we just provide the input. So I hope it will work. Let's see. Let's go to our project and give it as two numbers just, and let's save it. Oops, it's working. So what, let's check the code again. We have an input, we have a minimum number, max number. So for show error we have an input, if input dot value, so we want to run a length, so we want to get a length of the number, not a value. So if input dot value dot length, length, so use length for if statement and also for if else statement, length. Now save it, and now it will work. So for example, I will give it a number less than 3. Now you will see it will show us error, username must be at least 3 characters, and now I will give it a number greater than 15, and now you will see it has an error, username must be at least 15 characters. So let's remove it and let's check the functionality for a password. So here I will provide a number less than 6. So for example, I will give it 4 digits. It will say must be at least 6 characters. So let's give it a number greater than 20, and now what it will say, password must be less than 6 or 20 characters. So the last part of the functionality we will implement, which will be, we will check if the password and the confirmed password are matching or not. So for this we will create another function which will be check passwords match. So in our add event listener we will run another function which will name it as check passwords match. So use a capital P because we want a camel case. Oops. And we will provide a 2 arguments to this. The first one will be a password and the second one will be a password too. The same that we have imported it from our HTML file, which will be this one and this one. So let's go to our password match and provided 2 values. First one will be a password, second one will be a password too. And now let's save it, and above the event listener create a function which will name, function name will be check passwords match, and we have 2 values. First one will be input and the other one will be input 2. And now we will also have a bunch of if statements which will check if the both of these values are matching or not. So for a first we will set as an if input
dot value does not match to the input 2 dot value, we will run an error. So let's see what's happening. So if we will run an if statement, if input, which will be a password, if it doesn't match with the not one, input 2, we want an input value. If input dot value doesn't match with the input 2 dot value, what we will say is that we will run an if statement and we will run an error function here. So for this, let's do a curly braces, and here we will run and show error function, show error. And in this error, what we want to do, so we want to run an error message on confirm password. So we have input 2, so run the error on the input 2, and what will say as a message is that passwords do not match. So in the commas, so we don't need a template reiterates right now, so we'll say passwords do not match. Let's save it, and now I think it will work. Let's go to our project. So in our project, we'll use some random numbers first of all. For example, I will write 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 and give it a different value. So let's see how it will say. So it will say passwords do not match. Now I will use the same number 1 2 3 4 5 6. Oops, I have to write it again 1 2 3 4 5 6. And now, so refresh the page, and now let's see if it's working or not. So I will give it first 6 digits, and now I will give it the next 6 digits, the same one, and now you will see it's working. We have confirmed password. So refresh the page and we'll test our app. So I will give it a username, I will give it a email test@test.com, and then I will give it a password which will be 1 to 6, and I will confirm the password 1 2 3 4 5 6. I hope it will work. Let's see. So as you will see, it's working. So we have done with our project. I will upload the code on my GitHub repository and paste the link in the description of this video so you can download. So I hope you have liked this video. So if you have learned something, smash the like button and subscribe to this channel, because I will upload more projects about JavaScript in the future. So have a nice day, because this is the end of the tutorial.
Tell me pretty lies, look me in the face, tell me that you love me, even if it's fake.